we saw this nice little study, I think it was about a month ago, where we looked at what growth teams are discussing online. It's the aggregate of blog articles, webinars, forums over like 2,000 pieces. 70% was discussing user acquisition, 20% was on retention and stickiness, and 10% was on monetization. Yet looking at impact on the bottom line of the business, maybe the attention should be flipped a little bit. Focusing on retention is 2 to 4x as efficient as focusing on acquisition. Focusing on monetization is maybe twice as efficient as focusing on retention, for example. Is that true? Is that false? Do you need to acquire more customers in any case? Should we flip the balance a bit?
Okay, great context. Two things. It really depends on like your product dynamics, how fast you sell, and let's say the ACV and like what you're selling motion. Like, do you have a self-serve PLG motion, or do you have a sales-assisted, I'd say sales-driven motion? All right, are you selling to SMBs or are you selling to enterprise?
Yeah.
And again, that goes back to the pattern matching. Okay. I can say, like, we do some of the same things. Like I help large organizations or large startups, let's say, audit and think through what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, and help them assess, let's say, their strengths, and then build a strong growth organization that's going to focus on where are the biggest wins. The way I approach that, which is kind of the question you're asking, is I have the teams build a life cycle map, visual lifecycle map of all the steps of the customer experience from the very top, from the ads, emails, or however you're acquiring, say, prospects, to the very bottom with the drop-offs at each stage. All right. And it's important that you use the word drop-off and not the word conversion rate, because conversion rate feels positive, right? But when the conversion rate is 4%, it means you dropped off 96% of the people. Just think about it. If you're the leader in an army squadron and you come back with 4% of the squad, like, is that success? I would argue it's not. Okay, you lost 96% of the troops.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's important. And then I use pattern matching on like what I know the good conversion rates are at each stage, what they should be for that specific like quadrant of like ACV, target focus of industry. Say, this looks like a very big problem. This looks like something that is under optimized, and this is okay. Generally speaking, I like to look at it this way. Is the funnel 80% optimized and we have a pipe more than we have, let's say, a past as trainer? Okay. Thus, can we focus on acquisition? What's the biggest problem? Is it like the funnel itself, or is it like the cost of acquisition that is either too high or we're just bringing the wrong kind of leads? So I look at those big things. Like, if we have the right kind of leads at the right price, but they're not converting, then I have a funnel issue. Okay. Now, going to your question in retention and monetization. Generally, I try to stay away from retention. Okay. Yes, it's a big, meaty problem. However, in B2B SaaS, it's a problem that you can see the effects only after 6, 9, 12 months. It's very hard to iterate an experiment on retention and see the measurements within a short time frame. It's extremely hard. Whatever you do today won't be visible before a year. I don't have a year. That's one thing. Second thing, if you're thinking of like 5x year-over-year growth, that's top of funnel growth. Okay? Which means whomever you're retaining, even if you retain 100%, that's just 1/5 of today's growth. So the more you grow on the top of funnel, the less past customers are retention is important for a time. For a time. Okay? So that's kind of how to think about it. However, I'd say if you have a product that has some kind of virality or it has some kind of network effects, then having really good, I'd say, activation KPI and really high activation and, I'd say, usage retention becomes critical, because then that fuels your activation, your acquisition for free. Okay?
Yeah. So can I push back on the retention piece a little bit?
Yeah, go ahead. That's what we're here for.
What if you can define early indicators of retention where you don't need to wait 9 months? You can find simple correlation. And anybody here listening, you can use simple tools like Adjust or amplitude that feed into segment that give you a correlation between specific events. And in the world of B2B enterprise, we know what it is. There's a correlation between number of meetings and chance to actually close that deal typically. It's
Absolutely.
really so is it not possible to use these early indicators to so that growth teams can focus on retention? We like to call it activation or that critical event, let's say.
I haven't been very successful at that every time I've tried. And I give you a couple of examples. One is we built a correlation on people that joined a year ago, and we look at the population that churned versus those that retained, right? And so we built a model, and we have a model that seems pretty legit, right? With a correlation factor that is like above like 0.85 or 0.9, which is high. We feel good about it. And then we try to apply it to the current audience, right? And it doesn't work. One of the reasons is the product changed. The pricing changed. It's a year ago. Like every startup increases the prices. The audience who we are acquiring changed. And so the problem is that whatever we did 1 year ago isn't that relevant to what we have today. That's the first thing. The second thing is that it depends on the products. But I was at a very interesting Sequoia conference for the scouts 2 years ago, where we had a really good data-driven presentation on churn reasons. And very often, you have, let's say, 30 to 40% of the churn, which is unpredictable, which is the user, the champion left, moved to another company.
Yep.
Champion moved. The company went under. Or there's a tech change that just makes your product irrelevant. Okay?
Yep.
So that's like, that is not something you can analyze or predict. Okay? So yes, churn is important. I tend to think that what is important is net dollar retention. All right? Which is making sure that the people who are using your product pay more and more.
Yep.
And use it more and more. That is critical. So I think, I'd say usage retention, dollar upsells, that is very, very valuable.
Yep.
Trying to predict who's going to churn is very hard. And I have seen challenges trying to do that.